It's going to last 10, 15, 20,
10, 15 minutes,
okay,
but we'll see. Let's just rock and roll.
Okay.
So, Soma, it's great to have you on Channel 9. Tell us about yourself. What do you do?
Great to be back on Channel 9 first.
Yeah.
I run the developer division here at Microsoft. So, as part of running the developer division, sort of at a high level, I think about our mission as threefold. One is delivering a set of .NET platform technologies for developers around the world, so they have a sort of a rich platform, a rich set of frameworks that they can build applications on. The second thing is a set of developer tools. So all the Visual Studio family of developer tools that come out of Microsoft have sort of the developer division. And then the third thing, this is sort of a more recent venture that we got started a couple of years ago. We wanted to build a set of tools targeted at the professional designers of the world, which we call Expression family of tools. So that also comes from the developer division. So those are sort of the three pillars of the developer division.
Awesome, and that includes languages like C#. And
absolutely, all the languages, tools, compilers, everything that you ship as part of Visual Studio, the IDE, the languages support, Visual Studio Express, Visual Studio Standard, Visual Studio Professional, the lifecycle tools where we target the professional developers, the testers, the architects, the designers. So all of the tools come from my world.
So you're a vice president, right? This is your division. So let's talk a little bit about how did you get to this position? I mean, you didn't just get a handshake and welcome in. I mean, you started off. Let's hear about your history at Microsoft in the past.
Sure. It seems like a long time ago, and it is a long time ago, but there are times when I think, hey, it looks like I just joined Microsoft and where has all the time flown by kind of thing. I did join Microsoft back in '89, January '89, fresh out of school. I was doing my, so this is one trait that Bill and I share. I dropped out of college. I was doing my PhD from Buffalo, State University of New York at Buffalo.
Okay.
And it was cold. It is a cold place. Okay. So I was like, sort of not sure in my head, do I want to finish my PhD and stay a couple more winters here? Or what should I be doing? Just about that time, I sort of happened to interview with Microsoft. I got a job offer from Microsoft. And it was like, the trade-off I had to make was stay in the cold place for 2 more years or go to this sort of relatively unknown company in the Northwest. And I never been to the Northwest until then. And the cold weather and systems programming both sort of helped me decide that maybe I should go to Microsoft. And I've not looked back since then.
Fantastic. So what did you start off as? Were you an engineer? Or?
Yeah, I started off as a development or a SDE in test, software design engineer in test. Back then, Microsoft and IBM were involved in a joint development project for a 32-bit advanced operating system called OS2. So I got put in that project when I joined in first, and I was working on file systems and memory management, all of the kernel features.
Sure, excellent. And so, I'm curious. I mean, a lot of people are. How do you move up to vice president? I mean, is it just stellar performance, or you have big ideas? And I mean, how does it work?
I don't know. I think it works differently for different people. I sort of break it down. I try to be a simple kind of guy, and I say break it down into a few key attributes. Right? You need to be passionate about using software to go solve hard problems, big problems, problems that people care about deeply. You need to be willing to learn because this industry is fast changing. Hey, I know something today and I can write on that for the next 35 years. Probably doesn't work in this industry. So you need to be willing to and be excited about learning all the time. And the third thing is you want to give your very best, no matter what job you are in. If you give your very best, I say automatically the right things will happen. That means some people may become a VP, some people may go run a company, some people may be the greatest engineer. It varies, right? But so those are some of the simple attributes that I keep in mind, and I tell people when they ask me, hey, what should I do, kind of thing. So, be passionate, do your very best. That I think will happen.
Sure, but I mean, it's certainly to be a successful vice president. I mean, you're dealing with a large, basically, company that you run, and you have to be knowledgeable about so many things happening within your division, right? Especially a division like developer tools. And so, how do you scale? How does it work? Do you have a life outside of work, or do you just work all the time?
I have a wife and 2 daughters. No, but you know, it's like now I people sometimes ask me, you know, hey, you know, developer division is a big division. How do you manage, kind of thing, right? And I say, no, I don't think about it that way. I think about it as like, you know, I get a chance to work closely with like, you know, half a dozen people or a dozen people, and hopefully they'll turn around and work with another, you know, half a dozen or a dozen people each, and then pretty soon, you know, you cover the entire organization, right? The other thing, you know, sort of going back to your previous question. At the end of the day, there are 3 or 4 things that I sort of, you know, bucketize people into. You can be a technology leader, you can be a business leader, you can be a people organization leader. And so, you know, earlier on, I think, you know, if you are interested in sort of growing through the corporate ranks and, you know, want to, you know, reach some position up there, decide, you know, hey, where you're going to hang your hat on. There are going to be very, very few people who are going to be superstars in all these dimensions. Usually what happens is, right, people are extremely good in 1 or 2 of these dimensions, the other they are okay, kind of thing, right? So pick and choose, you know, hey, if I say, Charles, what do you want, you know, the world to think about, you know, are you the best technology leader, are you the best business leader, are you the best process leader, are you the best organization leader? What is it, you know, that people can identify and resonate when they hear your name, based on your passion, your contributions, your excitement, your skills, kind of thing, and, you know, make sure that it is at least on one of those dimensions.
I'm in trouble.
No.
Well, I'm just an individual contributor, which is a fine thing to do.
Which is fantastic. You know, there are days when I wonder, you know, gosh, wouldn't I be, you know, excited to be an individual contributor, kind of thing, because there is something that is exciting about, like, you know, you contributing directly as opposed to working through other people.
So, do you write code at all these days? Do you test out this product?
I do test the product occasionally, but you know, it's been like several years since I have written code.
Understandable. So let's talk a little bit about, I've been reading your blog, and it's great that you blog. It seems to be a very highly active blog, which is, you know, great job.
Thank you.
I mean, I can imagine it's hard to find time to do that. And I saw one of the blog posts you were talking about SP1 of Visual Studio 2005 not being supported on Vista. Can we talk a little bit about why that's the case?
Sure.
And decision making that's gone into that?
Absolutely. First of all, I want to sort of rectify one thing that you just said.
Sure.
SP1 is supported on Vista. There are going to be a few issues that people are going to encounter when they run SP1 on Vista.
Okay.
And, you know, we need to sort of continue, you know, figuring out what those are and providing fixes to those. But SP1 is absolutely supported on Vista.
Okay.
So I want to make that clear.
Okay.
And I hope that my blog said that as well. So, here is the sort of trade-off that we had to make. We had, you know, decided that we want to do a service pack for Visual Studio 2005. Actually, we want to do it by the end of this summer, early fall kind of thing. And actually, we are going to be, you know, a couple of months later on that. Okay. The decision that we had to make was, you know, hey, Vista is this brand new operating system, you know, great operating system. We think, you know, it's going to, you know, be very well received by our customers, and we want to make sure that we have a great developer experience using Visual Studio 2005 on Vista.
Okay.
Because of a lot of the changes, architectural changes in the operating system, particularly in the security space, and as you know, developer tools tend to be more invasive of the system than other kinds of applications. We, earlier this year, we said, hey, there are a bunch of issues that we have that we need to work around or we need to fix to ensure that we have a good compatibility story. The decision that we had to make was, are we going to hold SP1 till we get all those fixes and test those fixes and make sure we not only fix the right set of problems, but we don't regress any other functionality in the system? Do we do that? Or because, you know, we've heard from our customers loud and clear that they would love to see Service Pack 1 to help fix some of the issues that they've seen earlier, and know that, you know, we may not be able to, you know, fix all the issues that we know about running Visual Studio 2005 on Vista. So that's the decision, and we sort of, you know, struggled with the decision for a while, and then, you know, looking at all the feedback that we got, we decided that, you know, hey, we are going to ship SP1 as soon as we can, and we'll make sure that SP1 has a good experience, but there are going to be issues, and if there are issues, we will, you know, need to continue fixing them even post SP1 kind of thing.
Understood. And come down as like little service packs.
Right, we'll have a GDR, or, you know, a GDR is what we call as for general distribution release, a fix or a handful of fixes that we want to package up and then say hey, anybody who's running Visual Studio 2005 SP1 out there should be able to get these fixes, kind of thing.
Excellent. Now, just to be clear, it's an issue basically with the new security infrastructure in Vista, correct?
It's like hey, there is this notion of I want to run as a normal user. Until Vista comes along, most people in the world, though there is administrative privileges and standard user privileges, most people run their systems as administrators, because for me to to install an application, to install some devices, a lot of the things that most people would want to do on their PC, you needed to have administrative privileges. So what we've done in Vista is said, hey, we really want to enable a lot of our users to be able to run as a standard user, as a normal user, and be thoughtful about when we wanted people to run as administrator or run with elevated privileges, and know that hey, by me running with elevated privileges, I have more sort of power, so to speak, because I can do more things, but at the same time I need to know that I have the responsibility as well.
Understood. Very cool. Thanks for that explanation. Absolutely. I think it's pretty crystal clear. But in the end, it's going to run fine on Vista over the course of time. So it's not I guess some of the people that were thinking in the comments that I heard from people were that, well, we're not supporting SP1 on Vista? That's crazy.
We are supporting SP1 on Vista, but we know that there are going to be a set of scenarios where customers will have some issues. And actually one of the things we are doing as we speak today, we are having a team of people go through and try to identify what those issues could potentially be, and then document it so that customers out there can understand what those issues are likely that they're going to hit, and if there are customer workarounds that we can do to help them get past the problems, we'll talk about them, and as and when we have fixes available, we'll point customers to those fixes.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the future of Visual Studio then. I mean, Vista is now, and 2005 SP1 is pretty much now. Where are we going? What's the direction with tools in your mind?
So, the first, let me sort of paint the roadmap a little bit and then talk about trends, probably a little bit later. So, in the division we've started working on the next version of Visual Studio, which we've codenamed Orcus. And the primary focus for Orcus is to be the best developer tools to target Windows Vista and Office 12.
Okay.
You can use WinB or Visual Studio 2005 today to be able to write Windows Vista applications. You can target Windows Vista, you can write applications that can run on Windows Vista. But some of the designer for Windows Presentation Foundation, or tools to be able to write Indigo app or Windows Communication Foundation applications. You have to write a lot of code today with Visual Studio 2005. We'll be able to do some designers and other work in in the next version of Visual Studio Orcus that enables you to more easily build Vista applications. So that's, and likewise in Office, we recently announced the code name Cypress, which is the Visual Studio tools for Office. I think we call it 2nd edition, which is an add-on to Visual Studio 2005 to make us target Office 12. So we'll make sure that we take that functionality, integrate it with Orcus, as well as provide some design time support so that you can more easily target Office 12 as a platform as you can target Vista as a platform. So that's sort of the key focus for Orcus. We are also doing a bunch of work in other parts of Visual Studio. One thing that I want to highlight, and we've talked about this a lot, is the work that we are doing to enable link support, both in VB and C#. So that and the way I think about it is, right, we used to have a programming world and a data world, and we want to make sure that we sort of bring those two worlds closer together.
Excellent.
So we are doing a whole bunch of work on link, and that's another exciting thing that's going to be a part of Orcus. So that's sort of some of the key things that we are doing in Orcus.
Okay.
And meanwhile, we are also starting to think about hey, what comes post Orcus, right? But it's still early planning. And as we make a little bit more progress, as we get into Orcus beta, and we have the ability to start doing more in-depth planning, we'll be able to talk about that.
Certainly.
Right.
But it brings up a good point. I mean, clearly you're tasked with that sort of thinking for the most part. I mean, overseeing it anyway.
Right. Yeah.
But of course, the evolution of our products don't happen in a box, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we get customer feedback, but besides the customer feedback, which is incredibly, exceptionally important, there's other aspects, correct? I mean, you have stuff coming out of research, you have
Right.
new ideas from brilliant people on your
Absolutely.
team.
Right. Even today, we have a lot of what I call incubations, and I'm a big believer in incubations, right? What I tell people is, hey, every team should plan for 10 to 15% of their time and resources to be focused on what I call long lead incubations. Things that may take 4 or 5 years from the time we start thinking about it to when we bring them to market, so that we always have this innovative spirit that is going on in the division, so that 2 years from now we have some great things coming out that we started as incubation maybe this year or last year or whenever we started, and there is an ongoing an innovation pipeline, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
So we do that, and today we have a bunch of things. I'll just highlight one example. If you talk to the hardware companies like Intel, like AMD, like any of these people who come out with microprocessors for for the PCs and the like, they would tell you that the future is multi-core and many-core. Look at Intel's roadmap, look at AMD's roadmap, look at all these roadmaps. It's all hey, the world is going to be multi-core and then many-core kind of thing, right? Now, what does that really mean in the software world? We've had this dream of parallel programming. And today I say, parallel programming is still not evolved or developed as much as where every developer knows how, or every developer can easily write a program that can be executed parallelly kind of thing, right? A lot of the applications are still single-threaded for that matter. So we need to figure out at the operating system level, at the tools level, at the applications level, at every level in the software stack that we care about, what does it mean to enable people to write applications that can truly take advantage of the multi-core and many-core hardware support? That's a huge step forward for software developers. And we got a bunch of people, a lot of them working in my division, but people across the company who are thinking about how do we truly take advantage of the hardware advances coming in the many-core, multi-core world, and what do we need to do both in the software that we provide and what tools that we need to provide so that software developers around the world can truly take advantage and get the performance benefits and all the fun things that they get with the advances in hardware. So that's one huge piece of work that I call it early incubation, but we start that incubation today.
Excellent. And so, what do you say for the C++ developers out there? I mean, we always seem to focus in on C# and VB.NET, and that's great. Those are wonderful languages, but there's still a huge number of unmanaged C++ developers.
Absolutely.
What are we doing for them?
There is a large number of C++ developers, right? I think people, some people will tell you we have millions, 2+ million, 3 million, depending on how you count it, kind of thing. And I think the thing that we need to recognize and think about, there's going to be people who are excited about managed code, and that's fantastic for a lot of different scenarios. And then there are going to be some people who are excited about native code for a different set of scenarios, and we need to be able to move developers forward in both sides of the house, kind of thing, right? So for C++, one of the things that we are looking at doing is figuring out how we can make some enhancements to MFC to be able to allow the C++ developers to target all the rich functionality that's available in Vista, right? That's one of the things we are looking at. When we are going to be able to do it and bring to market, I think the team is trying to figure that out, but that's one of the things that we are looking at doing.
Excellent. Well, it's good. I mean, it's just the point is that coming from you,
right.
I mean, it's fact, right? We do want the language to evolve. We haven't forgotten about that subset of developers.
In fact, if you look at the C++ language and the support that we provide in Visual Studio, the progress that we've made between the previous version of Visual Studio, which is Visual Studio 2003 to Visual Studio 2005, I think we made a lot of progress, and we need to continue evolving that.
Sure. I mean, a lot of C++ developers talk about how they'd like the IntelliSense support to be improved.
Right.
But it's a harder problem when you're dealing with unmanaged libraries.
Right. And just to give you a a sense of this, look at Microsoft. Microsoft is a big software development house, as much as any other software development house in the world, kind of thing, right? There's large chunks of code in Microsoft that's C++, and I'll be the first to tell you that there is no plan to throw all that code away and say, oh, I'm going to write in C# or VB.NET or whatever else it is, right?
Yeah.
So Windows, large chunks of Windows, Office, go team by team.
Mm-hmm.
There are chunks of like C++ native code that exists today in the company that I foresee existing for time to come, right?
Yeah.
So as much as the rest of the world, we need to make sure that our own house can also benefit from our tools, the evolution of our language, the evolution of our tools.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a responsibility to the C++ developers and native development, as much as the managed code development.
Outstanding. So you're vice president. You've been here for 19 years. I mean, why aren't you vacationing in Tahiti full time? What what excites you so much to come to work every day and to keep innovating and keep working hard?
Right.
So let's talk about that.
So in my mind, the good news is I've been asked this question a couple of times before, so I sort of can don't have to think too much. There are a variety of reasons, but I sort of summarize it into like 2 reasons at the end of the day. I personally want to continue learning new things. I want to work with smart people, and I want to have a broad impact. That's sort of what makes me get up in the morning and want to do something. Now, why Microsoft after 18 years or how many ever years it is, right? Why not vacation somewhere full time kind of thing, right? I say there are 2 reasons. One is, if you look at the software that we make, I've been in Windows for the first 14 years of my career at Microsoft, and the last 3 years or so been in the developer division, right? The work that we do, the products that we build, the products that we deliver and ship, literally hundreds of millions of customers around the world are using our products. And they're using it in sort of in what I call in a meaningful way. Some of them may be using it for education, some of them may be using it for business, for improving their personal productivity, for education, for communication, for entertainment, for sharing information with family and friends, whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. But in some meaningful way, the software that we are making, the software that you're delivering, has a broad impact, on people around the world. And as long as I think about the impact, that I get to be part of a team, a product, a set of products that can potentially have that impact, and that impact is only growing positively and broader day by day, I say, hey, I don't know where else I want to be, because making an impact at the end of the day is a satisfying feeling. The other thing is, this I sort of say it in a joking manner, there are a few days when I sort of feel a little bit too good about myself. I say, hey, I'm working for the largest software company in the world. I sort of made it as an officer in the company, hey, life is great, maybe, I'm a little bit too smart kind of thing, right? And this happens, when I go home some days and I say, wow, I'm good kind of thing. But that feeling lasts with me probably overnight, and then next day morning when I come into work, I sort of get pulled down to earth quickly. And the reason is because when I look at people around me, I sort of say, hey, wow, there are so many people who are smarter than I. How can I work with them and learn more, right? And as long as I personally want to be in an environment where I can continue to learn, interacting with smart people, and I truly believe that Microsoft has done a fantastic job, over the years, right? Building an organization, a team of people where we've been able to get the best and brightest from around the world. Absolutely. To be a part of Microsoft, with a common interest of using software to go, solve some, hard problems in the world. So getting the opportunity to make a broad impact, having the sort of an opportunity to work with super smart people, I say as long as those 2 things are there, I'm excited to be a part of this company.
Fantastic. Well, on that note, I'm sure you have some other work to do. And it's been great meeting you. I guess I would ask one last thing in finale is, what, in your opinion, excites you most about Visual Studio 2005? Like, the thing that you guys just released. What excites you about that? And what excites you about Orcus? And the future of developers for our platform, right? Because we're making it easier for them to write good code. Right. Isn't that the mantra, right? Yeah. Easier to write good code. Right. Mm-hmm. So we're going to keep enabling that. But what really excites you? Are there any specific features that are just like your pet features?
I think more than the feature itself, the one theme that is really exciting to me is the fact that, historically, if you look at through the evolution of Visual Studio as a product, a family of products, we've always been focused on the professional developer, on the individual developer, and said, hey, our job is to build a set of tools and technologies that is going to make you highly, highly productive. And I think we've delivered on that release after release after release kind of thing. For Visual Studio 2005, when we started designing the product, we said, hey, if you think about software development, the software developer is a critical part of the software development team. But guess what? There are more people that need to come together to make the software team be successful, the software project that they're working be successful. It could be starting anywhere from hey, a business analyst to a project manager to a tester to an architect to a designer kind of thing. And we said, hey, we are going to increase the focus or expand the focus, because we want to continue focusing on the individual developer, but we also want to focus on these other roles that exist within a team and provide a set of tools that enable the team to come together and work in a highly collaborative way. To simplify this, I call this expanding from the individual developer productivity to the team productivity. So we want the team to be highly productive. So all the work that we did with lifecycle tools or Visual Studio team system is absolutely based on that premise and strategy. So that is one thing, the fact that we are expanding our focus to look broadly at software development. I'm super excited about that. And the work that we've done in Visual Studio 2005 is only the first step. We want to see us target more roles and really expand our focus so that we provide an integrated set of tools that really enable the team to work together highly effectively kind of thing. So that's one. The other part that I'm excited about with Visual Studio Express, for the first time we have an offering that is targeted at sort of the hobbyist, enthusiast kind of developer crowd. There is a lot of people who want to create things. Pretty much everybody in the world, you can say, hey, they want to create something. I want to create a website, I want to create a game, I want to tweak a game, I want to do something, right? Whatever else that fancies my attention. So having a set of tools that makes it easy for you to get started, to sort of unleash the developer in you. I think that's a great thing, and Visual Studio Express is the first step in that journey. So expanding the focus on the one side to the hobbyist, the enthusiast kind of developer, pretty much, I think each one of us in our hearts, want to develop something, want to create something.
Sure.
And going all the way to enabling, teams, software teams to be highly productive. I think expanding that focus, that's the biggest thing that I'm excited about in Visual Studio 2005. And as I keep repeating, that's only the first step.
Absolutely. Well, hey, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great to talk
it was
to you.
great talking to you. Okay. Thanks.
Take care.